welcome to the final segment we have for you all. We had to end it with a big finale because a great show deserves a great ending. With no further ado, we bring you an interview with a broadcasting legend from SUNY Oswego. He holds multiple world records, weather anchor on NBC's Today, class of '76, Mr. Al Roker. Al, how are you doing today?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. We just want to thank you for dedicating your time and coming here, and it's a pleasure and an honor.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right. So, how did you hear about SUNY Oswego, and what brought you here?
Well, I had, my parents had limited means. People talked about how great the state university system is. I knew I wanted to work in television, not necessarily on television. And at the time, I think SUNY Oswego was the only state college that had a robust television. That back then it was called radio and TV, and so they met my stringent requirements. They accepted me, and I came to the college sight unseen. I didn't even come up to look at it. This was before the age of doing college tours. You could barely scrounge enough money for the admissions fee, let alone drive to or fly to colleges. But that said, it was my biggest surprise when I got here was I knew it was on a great lake, but to me a lake was something you could see the other side of. And when I said, they're wrong. We're on an ocean.
I'm from Queens, so specifically Queens Village, and for me it was definitely a culture shock. You also being from Queens, how was the transition coming from the city to the Oswego in the 70s? Oh, and also before you get started, also I know you grew up in St. Albans. I believe my parents also grew up in St. Albans in the same neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know where?
Yeah, I forgot the avenue. I think by Leslie Road, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. I was off of 120th Avenue and Springfield Boulevard, but it wasn't. I don't know. It didn't strike me as that hard. Also, I think I was looking for. I'm the oldest of six, so I was looking forward to getting away from my brothers and sisters. Everything else was a party. So, but no, look, there was some. I think the biggest culture shock was the food. At that time, hard to mention, there was, I think my freshman year, they opened up a Chinese restaurant, but you couldn't buy bagels anywhere or anything like that. So, of course, there was the Oswego sub shop. Yeah. So, but, so it was a little bit of a culture shock, but nothing horrible.
So, coming to SUNY Oswego, focusing on graphic design, how did you end up as a meteorologist? Was there a specific class that inspired you?
No, to be honest, I was just looking to fulfill a science requirement, and somebody said, "Oh, you take the meteorology class," and so I did, and that was that. And then I took then it was called ecology. I guess today it's environmental science. And I took another meteorology class, but that was it. And I didn't think anything more of it until my sophomore year. The media summit is named after Dr. Lewis B. O'Donnell. I think he was the first chairman of the radio and TV department. But in any event, I just had no plans of being on TV. I wanted to work in graphics or produce or write. And at the time, in 1974, Channel 5 in Syracuse didn't do a full-blown weekend newscast. And the news director there was a guy named Andy Brigham, decided they were going to start a full newscast with news, sports, and a weather person. And so, the news director went to Lou O'Donnell, who worked at the station hosting a kids show. And he said, "You got any promising kids up there I could hire to do weather?" And so Lou came up and he picked three of us to do a tape in Lanigan Hall. That was where the TV studio was. and we did the tape, and he took it down for us, and I got picked to come down and do another audition. And and my first broadcast was, I think, June of 1974.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Wow, that's a great story right there. So Al, switching gears a bit, what is it about SUNY Oswego that you still feel such a deep connection to the campus and community after all these years?
Well, look, I mean, it's someplace besides, doing television news. I also worked at WSGO in us, in town. I worked at WRVO. In fact, I worked at WRVO during one of the most tumultuous times in our country's history, during the Watergate hearings. I ran the board for that, for NPR. And I just enjoy, there was something, you go through something, when you go through one of those classic Oswego blizzards, you feel like you've been through something. And it just, I mean, I had some great friends. I loved doing radio. There was just a sense of community there that, and listen, I didn't go to Syracuse University. I couldn't afford it, but I have a feeling that it was a little less personal because it's such a big school, whereas SUNY Oswego is a pretty, by those standards, is a smaller school. At least it was then. So, when you have something like that, I think you cherish it.
Of course. All right. So when you weren't in class, what were your favorite things to do in the Oswego area? Did you have a favorite restaurant or a bar that you like to hang out with friends?
It's funny that I think Playboy magazine years ago, like right before I got there, said that per capita student, SUNY Oswego had more bars than any other state college.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still true or not. But I didn't really go to the bars. They opened up right across the radio station, WOCR, the student-run radio station, was down in the basement of the Hewitt Union, and right across the way was this kind of big empty space, and they turned it into a bar called the Ratskeller. But I'd go, you do your DJ shift, and you go in and you get a big soda and then come back. But I went to you went to Canales, for like when your parents came up and they were going to treat you to a meal, you take them to Canales. There was a great place downtown. It's no longer there, right on the river. I don't know if you remember, if you're standing on the bridge and you're looking toward the lake, there's an old stone building off to your left.
Yeah.
There used to be a place in the first floor called Cahill's Fish, and they made these great fried fish sandwiches. I always loved going out, Bev's Dairy Treat out on the Loop. It was a big deal when they opened up, I know it's not there anymore, but when they opened up a Ponderosa steakhouse, that was like, ooh, salad bar, a ribeye, that's good times, that's good eating.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you have so many memories. I don't think any of those, of course, many of those places are still not, they're not here today.
Bev's is still there, that out there on the Loop, Bev's and Rudy's.
Bev's and Rudy's are still there. I went to Bev's the other day, actually, so still good.
Yeah, especially with the nice weather coming around here in Oswego, it's definitely the time to go to Bev's.
But, look, that's the thing. I mean, everybody talks about winter, but spring and summer, I don't know if you guys did any summer classes, but because, and funny, that was because I was working weekends, I was going to have to stay up at school anyway. So I started loading up on summer classes. So that by my senior year, I had an independent study and 2 classes. So I was able to kind of coast in senior year. But that said, I kind of digress. Summer in Oswego is hard to beat. Of course, in the spring, I don't know if it still happens. do the moon eyes still die by the millions and wash up on shore?
I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea.
They're these little fish. They're like almost like sardine type fish. And at the time, and I don't know if they still, but there would be this die off of them, and they'd wash up on shore. And I got to tell you, on a warm summer day, man, it was rough.
Yeah, I might need to go check that out, especially like with the springtime fast approaching. But something, Professor, that you mentioned, Professor O'Donnell, one of the many things you've helped contribute to SUNY Oswego is the Dr. B. Lewis O'Donnell Media Summit. What was it about that professor that made you want to honor him so much?
Well, you know, a lot of times you have teachers who, how do I say this, who aren't necessarily, well, two things. They're not still working in the profession that they're teaching in, and they don't give you the unvarnished truth. And Doc O'Donnell, you know, he's still working doing the Magic Toy Shop, which was a local kid show in Channel 5 in Syracuse. But he was also very honest about things. He said, look, I remember his intro class. He said, look to your left, look to your right. Odds are one of those people in 5 years will not be in either radio or TV. Yeah, and that's kind of sobering, yeah. And he suggested things. He wanted us all to take accounting in case we were, because nobody wants to be a salesperson. They want to be on camera, do whatever. But let's face it, sales is where the money is. So you want us all to be able to do sales. And I took this intro to accounting class, and I remember the first class, the homework assignment took me 4 hours to do one problem. And I thought, I can't do it. I dropped that class faster than a hot potato.
Sounds like an accounting major. Yeah.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. It sounds like an accounting major, because I know a couple accounting majors that have that same exact problem. It'll take like a good hour just to get through one question.
Yeah, I'm like, who needs this? I'm not going into sales, so why am I? But anyway, he was a terrific teacher, and he was a great advocate for students. Yeah, you know, he made this joke. I always tell it, and it's a true story. I was taking a TV performance class. It was my first TV performance class, and he watched back the tape. And back in the day, it wasn't digital video. It was 2-inch tape. It was a reel that was like bigger, twice the size of your head. Anyway, we were watching back my performance, and he said, "You know, Roker, you have the perfect face for radio." But yet he was the one that put me up for the job doing TV weather. So, you know, that was the kind of guy he was.
No, yeah, he sounds like a great role model, someone that you could definitely look to for advice and who really helped you get that initial start, a strong foundation for you. Is there any favorite milestone or experience that you've had in Oswego specifically?
You know, there's no one thing that stands out. But, you know, I just felt that it was, and again, like I say, I didn't go to any other school, so I don't know. But I just felt that Oswego State provided you more hands-on earlier than, say, a Syracuse or these other big schools, communications, because your teachers knew, because they really knew you. They knew what your capabilities were and could help push you into those areas. And I just think there was a greater camaraderie among both students and faculty, so that, you know, I think you thrived, and that's, I think, the secret sauce for Oswego, and it's affordable, so that, you know, you're I think dollar for dollar, it's probably, you know, one of the great bargains in higher education. You know, when you compare it to, quote, the name brand schools, like where you would go to get this same degree, whether it's NYU or Syracuse or, you know, Northwestern or any of those places. SUNY Oswego can hold its own with any of those.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have a deeper connection with most of my professors here than I would at any other school, honestly. So what media organizations were you a part of when you were here as a student, and what importance do you feel they have?
I was basically at WOCR. We didn't have a TV station then. So there was WOCR, which was a campus-run carrier current AM radio station. So the way it worked was, we had the radio station in the Hewitt Union, and each dorm had a transmitter in it, and we were hardwired to each dorm. And then the transmitter was plugged into the electrical system in each dorm. So you picked it up basically via the electric wires in your dorm room. I mean, it was broadcast through that, to the point where you could actually drive a little off campus because it would kind of broadcast through the street lights on campus. So I felt very involved in that because students ran the radio station. WRVO still is there, obviously, and is bigger than ever, a public radio station. What was great about WRVO is in the summer, and I guess maybe during the week too, but certainly during the summer, you actually got paid. So that was nice. And so those were the only two, and really those were the only two media outlets on campus at the time. You know, there was no WTOP.
Yeah.
It was just radio. Boom.
That's crazy, because I'm not gonna lie, like just by the way you worded it with the wires and stuff, I'm like, yo, I feel like we would have so much it would be confusing, I feel, maybe, like in a way, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty simple in that, look, you didn't have to worry about the technical end of it. Your job, back then we had like most radio stations, we had a record library. I mean, it's funny because today there are no record libraries in a lot of radio stations. I mean, some of the older classic rock stations still do, jazz stations, but there's a radio show called American Top 40. They play the top 40 hits, and it was with this disc jockey Casey Kasem, and you may not remember or know Casey Kasem, but did you guys ever watch the original Scooby-Doo cartoons?
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Casey Kasem's probably best known as the voice of Shaggy. Hey, Scoob, how about a Scooby snack? Anyway, this was a program that counted down the top 40 records in America, as compiled by Billboard magazine. But back then, this was before satellite. This was before, digital. So what they would do is they would record it on a Wednesday, and they had something like 300, 400 radio stations around the world, maybe more than that. But what they would do is they would press three LP records, both sides, and then ship them. And this was before Federal Express. So they had to ship them, and you'd get the special delivery. We'd get the albums on Friday, and then we would start playing. And it was a 3-hour program. So this is ancient history. Nobody cares, but that was. But you had to learn how to back time the albums, because at the top of the hour we were ABC News Radio, American Information affiliate, and so at the top of each hour we hit a network radio newscast. So you had to be able to figure out, do the math, how many commercials can you get in, and there was subtract the hour, 5 minutes at the top of the hour, how many commercials do you have, and how much program is there on those albums. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun doing that stuff.
I'm glad. I'm not gonna lie. I would have had fun doing it too.
Yeah.
But Al, I know every story behind a person isn't everything nice. So are there any obstacles you went through during your college or your early career that you don't mind sharing?
Well, look, you do get homesick. You worry about, especially as you're getting closer to senior year. I mean, look, I mean, I didn't quite have that issue because I was already working by the time I was working full time at Channel 5 by the time my senior year rolled around. But you're not sure of what should you do with certain situations. Like I had there was a program where you would study overseas in London and do an internship at the BBC, and all of my friends were going, and you had to put down a deposit of $500. And look, $500 is $500, whether it's today or 1974. But in 1974, $500 was a lot of money.
That's a lot.
And you had a certain deadline to where you could pull out and get your money back. Otherwise, you'd lose your deposit. And I hadn't heard yet about my weekend weather job, and so I had to make a decision. Do I say that, oh, okay, the heck with the job, I'm just going to go on because it was for a full semester the next year, you're going to live in London, and I thought, how great would that be? Or do I take a chance, and say, okay, I'm not going to go, I'm going to get my money back, and then what happens if I don't get the job? Luckily, I got the job, but you've got a lot of doubts, as you know. It's a different time, and so I wouldn't say I had a lot of obstacles, but I think like everybody, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right major? You wonder, and unlike today where there's digital and cable and streaming and all, there were two places you could get a job, and that was either at a TV station or a radio station. So cable was just kind of coming into its own, barely. There certainly weren't the hundreds of channels there are now. Back then, Showtime had just really gotten going. HBO hadn't even started yet. So cable TV was originally just designed to help people get broadcast TV. But you're in a new golden age of all these different choices and potential possibilities.
We are in a golden age right now when it comes to television and radio, that we have so much at our disposal that we praise people like you and thank you for laying down a great foundation for us students. The next question I have for you is, what advice would you give to an incoming or current students who are trying to get into the television industry?
Be open to anything, because look, like I said, I meet a lot of students. I want to be a sports guy. I want to be a weather. I want to be a meteorologist. I want to be an anchor. Maybe, but maybe there's something else, and you should be really open to it. And that's why, especially, it's a little late for you guys, but I tell incoming students to take as diverse a group of classes as possible. This is I won't say it's the only time, but the best time in your life where you can explore all sorts of ideas and all sorts of disciplines. And so don't just focus on your major or what you think your major wants to be, but focus on being as well-rounded an individual as possible. Take philosophy classes, take geography, learn about the world around you. Take as many different, take a language. It just, I don't think anybody ever said on their deathbed, I'm sorry I learned about the world. Not that you're thinking about deathbeds, that's closer to me, but I just think that everybody wants to be the best in their field, and that's great. But I don't think you can be the best in your field if you don't know what the other fields are.
you're saying for a student to broaden their horizons and just to try many different things. Like if you're a broadcasting student, just go out and maybe take a class about animals or learning about the world, and maybe try a different club outside of whether it be WTOP, WNYO, just get involved.
Listen, I think, I don't even know if they still make the game Trivial Pursuit, but I always took pride in the fact that if I didn't finish first, I always came in a close second. Because knowing a lot or knowing a little bit about a lot of things isn't the worst thing in the world.
I also take a PR class right now that I'm really enjoying. So, you know, that's also like a certain thing like I'm considering too, like in my future, like, oh, maybe I could be a PR professional, or, you know, just trying to be as versatile as I can.
Sure, because look, you never know, where you're going to go. You don't know what's the thing that's going to fire up your passion. Prime example is my wife, Deborah Roberts, who is an award-winning journalist at ABC. She is a graduate of UGA, University of Georgia, and she was a theater major and took a journalism class and was hooked. So you just never know.
That is very true. Well, Mr. Roker, before we close out this interview, I just want to thank you. I had 2 goals for creating this show that you're going to be on out and around Oswego: to be the best and to interview you. And I want you to know I never gave up. I've worked for this interview for 2 years, and always the purpose was to have you on the show. You were just a young man just like us at one point. You went to school hours away from home just like many of us, in the middle of nowhere at the time. And you made your own college experience. So I just want this to be a reminder for all future, present, and past students that we all start somewhere, and wherever that person's standing right now is where they're supposed to be at this moment. This couldn't have been a better ending to this show. Next time you're in town, an Al Roker sub from Sub Shop's on me, and I just want to thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it, and you've got a bright future, and just enjoy it. And savor, and that's the other thing. Savor everything. We tend to get on these too much, and you know what? Don't look at you don't want to look at life through a lens. Just experience it. It's so much more. Every now and then I'm reminded. I can't remember where I was flying to or from, and I was on my phone, and I was sitting at the window seat, which I normally don't do because I like the aisle. But I just happened to look up. I sensed this light, and the sunset was just one of the most spectacular. Who's that climbing behind?
That's our guy Cletus right there.
I wasn't sure whether he worked for you or not. I just wanted to make sure you knew there was somebody creeping up on you.
Thank you for the heads up. Yes.
No worries, because he still might be creeping up on you. But if I had stayed on my phone, I would have missed that moment. And you can't experience life looking at a phone.
Of course, I'm more of a hands-to-hand person. I want to experience the real bonds in person. So I don't even like texting people or calling people. I'd rather just meet them in person. So
yeah. Well. Yeah, I think we're all good here. One more thing. This is outside the interview now. One more thing I'd like to know if you could do for us. I have a whole crew here that's, helped me throughout this whole process. I value a team so much in the whole broadcast, like this whole broadcasting thing for the show. They all came together and helped me out, and I'm not sure if you could give them like a minute or 2 more of your time so they could say hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and if we could get a picture as well.
Picture?
Yeah, Yeah.
You might want to move that. You might want to move that backlight.
You want to shut that backlight off real quick?
Yeah, we can take a selfie real quick.
Yeah. Wait, Alex, can you go up there and take a photo, or of all of us? Okay.
I can only go so far. Take the thing off.
I'm about to take one.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be the biggest thing. Short people in the front, so like 1, 2.
I All right.
All right, we're gonna take the picture in 3,
All right, smile,
2. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Al.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes. Have a great rest of your
Have a
day.
good one.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go.
Oh my God, bro.
Awesome.
Yo. Sir.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
And I got my selfie wow.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Good stuff. Thank you for
Read it,
calling
guys.
too. Yeah.
Read it, guys.
Yes. Oh.
Read it.
Hey, how's it going, Shelly? Yeah.